Hey, what up? This is Head Above Water channel. Thank you for tuning in. So in this video here, I have Dcell on the line, and we're going to talk about are black males and Asian women compatible? So Dcell, how's it going?
What up? What up? What up?
All right. So we seem to be the talk of the town. No,
I
I'm just
guess so.
joking. So numbers are doing good for that Pattaya video. Y'all go check that out. But let's get right to it. So a lot of uh, American males, they seem to look at, I guess, the average anime lover. They seem to look at Asian women as if, like, if I go to Japan or if I go to these Asian countries, they're going to flock to me because I'm an American and, I'm a little shy. I've never been with a woman in America. So it's going to be easier for me to get women in Japan or in Asia. Is that the case?
You definitely have a demographic of women that, because a lot of these Asian societies are, how do I want to say, it's only the local men here. They don't really mix. I forget the word for that. It starts with a Zen something. Anyway, there's not a lot of the local men here, so when we come over here, we're pretty much exotic, and there is a market for us here. White, black, doesn't matter. But the fact of the matter is, it's not as easy as everyone thinks because there's several factors that makes it a little bit harder than everyone would think. Number one would be the language barrier. Basically, the best looking women out here, they don't speak English. So the women that do are not the best lookers in the world. The local men don't want them. So that's the kind of girls that the guys end up with, and not the ones that they see on TV that they come over here for.
Right. So a lot of let's go back to what you just said. The ones that a lot of males get are the ones that are considered no good by Japanese or men or Asian men standard. And this standard is pretty much all throughout the board, all across the board throughout Asia. And some of those are like if you're 25 and older, you're still single, you're considered no good. If you're a single
Hmm.
mother, you're still like you're no good. What else?
If you have tattoos or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
they consider you no good. Um, you basically nailed most of them on the head. Like a lot of the men here, they have a saying called Christmas cake when a woman is over 25, just like Christmas, December 25, that, they're no good and you throw them out, something's wrong with them. So that's why they haven't found a man yet. So they become undesirable. Tattoos make a lot of the women here undesirable to the local men because they think it makes them look trashy. A woman that is over opinionated, that talks too much, that challenges the man.
Mm-hmm.
Local men don't like that at all. But an American man may be able to deal with it a lot better than a local man. They don't like to be challenged.
Mm.
Um, a woman that already has a kid. I
Yep.
see a lot of foreign men out here playing stepfather for kids that are straight up Asian, but Japanese men aren't doing that.
Exactly.
Phew, I
If
think there's
she's
a
if
few more,
she's
but I
a little
can't.
bit, she's kind of out of shape. They don't want her.
Yeah.
Um, if she's, some women, if they're too tall, they don't want them. Um, a lot of these, I notice a lot of the foreigners are getting with some of these women that grew up with no father, even if their minds is right. A lot of the local men don't want them. Some women that are too successful, they don't want them. They kind of want
Hmm.
them in the house as a baby maker. Uh, I have a friend over in Indonesia. She owns a yoga studio. She can't find a man down there for shit because the men down there just they don't want to see a woman. They don't want to be with a woman that's independent, making her own and
Yeah.
owns something.
Asian men are very traditional. Very, very traditional. It makes them cringe when they see a woman have their own opinion. Makes them cringe when they see a woman that makes more than them. It's kind of an intimidation factor for them. Yeah, they pretty much stay with the traditional roles. Woman stays home, cooks, cleans, take care of the kids. They go out and work. That's how things are, especially in this country, in Japan, and all throughout Asia. They have not gravitated towards the feminist movement where, men over in the West support, female power and, everything being equal. Asian men don't really stand for that.
Exactly. Now, the culture all throughout Asia is totally different. There's
Mm,
not one country that's the same as the next. Like China, the way they do things over there is totally different than how they do things in Japan. You know, different dating practices as they do in Korea. All right, but Japan in particular, um, a lot of black males when they think about going to Asia, they always, the first thing, first country that comes to mind is Japan. And I noticed the women out there, even if they do like you and you take things to the next level, when you get deep into the relationship, or let's say it goes to the next level like marriage, things
mm.
start to change, doesn't it?
I think it changes for every different Asian culture in
Right.
different ways. In Japan, the women get the longer you get into the relationship, the more there is expectations on getting married. And sometimes before you even get to the point of even proposing, these women start acting like you're already married. So then there comes the controlling, uh, uh, everything that comes with marriage. They start very early. And then that's at the point where you're like, well, do I really want to be married to this person if this is what I have to deal with? Or if you like how things are going, you go on. But Japanese women tend to get very possessive and they get into marriage mode earlier because there's a lot of pressure on these women to be married in their early 20s. So if they find a man and they're in a long relationship with them, there's a lot of pressure on them to get married. So they move quickly.
Exactly. And a lot of these women, they're controlling even early on. And I mean, it's not just in Japan. Like when I was in China, uh, I was seeing this one young lady, and she told me she wanted to marry me like within the first month of being with her. I'm like, I
Right.
mean, you're crazy as cat shit. You know, a lame or an anime lover, no disrespect, from America who's never been with a woman, he might think like, oh, okay, she really likes me. This is what I've always wanted. And you start to be, the bag carrier. You start to
Hmm.
be the sucker. You got to lay your jacket down in the puddle and be at her call and beckon whenever she needs you. And if you're not there, a lot of these dudes, they become so whipped in love that they just take the abuse, you know?
Well, there's a huge demographic of men that come over here just for the women. And they try to pass it off as, oh, well, I'm in Japan because I like the culture. But when you ask them anything about the culture, they can't give you a real concrete answer. They don't know anything about Japan's culture, but they say they love it, and that's why they're over here. So there's those guys, and there's the guys like myself who just, get tired of the way things are at home and you want to change your life. But I didn't really come over here for Japan's culture, and I didn't really come over here for the women. I came over here to change my life. But there's many more men that are like the first option I said, who just came here for the women, and they get sadly disappointed when the things don't go their way. So,
Exactly. Exactly. Now, some of these women that are considered no good, we talked
mm,
about, a list of few uh, character flaws that the Japanese men see in women that consider them no good. Even women that go to the club too often or party too much, they consider them no good. So when they get with the foreigner, you know, black males in particular, do they really get with them because they truly like them, or are they getting with them because it's like, okay, I could just kind of settle with this guy over here?
I think there are a small percentage. I'm just going to throw out a random percentage. I would say 10% genuinely like you. They would be genuinely interested in black culture, whether you're Jamaican, Trinidadian, American, African. They're genuinely interested in your own culture. So that makes them genuinely interested in black males. But then the majority of them, I would say, they get with you out of desperation because they don't have any other options.
Mm. Biological clock is ticking.
Yeah, so they just take anybody that shows them love. It's kind of like reversed of what the black guys do in Thailand. Anybody that shows them love is who they would gravitate towards. And I see this a lot with Japanese women that say they have a figure, right? A certain figure that Japanese men don't find appealing, but maybe the white guys find it appealing. So then they dress a certain way to attract them.
Hmm.
Or maybe, Indian guys or black guys, they dress a certain way to attract those guys. So I do see that a lot here.
Right, right. And some of these women uh, that get with the men, um, their I don't know their tactics or their way of flirting with black men or how they uh, seem to catch a black male is through negative, trying to act out negative stereotypes of poor, disenfranchised black women in America. Not all black women, but the poor, disenfranchised black women that are considered or called hood rats in America.
Hmm.
And a lot of black men come over here and get confused and seem to eat that up.
Hmm.
And it never ends well.
No, I think they do that because they think that's what we want, but in reality, that's not really how. I wouldn't say a lot of black women even act like that, so I don't quite know where they get it from. Could be social media, because you do see a lot of ratchet, ghetto people on social media,
Right.
and memes and stuff get spread around. They see how black women are acting, and they're like, "Oh well, black men like this, so I'm going to act this way." When in reality, we don't really like that kind of stuff. Like those of us that are aware enough and culturally sensitive and we want to change our lives who decide to travel, we are not the individuals that like that stuff. It's the guys that stay in their hoods, that live in their mom's basement, that don't really have any expectations for themselves. Those are the guys that like that. But the guys that come out here, they're not really with that kind of stuff. But a lot of coons travel
Mm.
and they make it think that it's okay for them to continuously acting this way, even though they don't like it. So that's a problem for the other black men who, routinely have to check these women. But it's hard to check them because their behavior has been reinforced by other black men before you. So it's very difficult.
Exactly. Coons is are the ones that are constantly making us look bad overseas. Like, and some males out here really probably don't even know if they are coons, because that word is just thrown around so loosely nowadays. But I'll say this: you let uh, if you're out in Asia and you let a woman call you the N word, then and you don't do anything about it, not to say that you have to do anything about it, but if you don't at least walk away and not talk to her anymore, and you just kind of let people call you the N word, then you a coon because she's just gonna feel that she could just say that to any of us, and sometimes she'll say it to one that really is against anybody calling them that word, and then they'll
Right.
pull a coon, they'll pull a coon to defend her right for calling you a racial slur, and I don't get that. I don't
I
understand
actually
that.
see that a lot on the internet, on social media, especially from Thai women, because we all know that the Pattaya has a huge demographic, not huge, but a sizable demographic of Thai women that like to go with black men. So they get on there and they're dropping N words upon N words. And then when some guy does check them on it, they have about 4 or 5 captains that come to their rescue, Captain Save-A-Hos, that they get on the guy instead of getting on the girl, like defending this girl when she's obviously in the wrong. And you've had to deal with that before on Instagram, I
Oh
believe.
yeah. What's that
Uh,
hood rat? Is she like a video, quote unquote, video vixen? What is she?
she she's the manager of dancers that go to hip hop clubs. They dance on stage and dance in cages and whatnot. She's like their manager.
And
So
she's
she
having a
meets,
black baby. She's
yeah.
engaged or with a black male. All her friends are black, and they allow her to say that word. And shame on you Negroes for allowing. I'll do a whole video on her next time. Okay, but this is also what I want to say. Um, a lot of men don't know that this is a hard pill to swallow for a lot of black males coming over here because they have high hopes of you know meeting a woman and building with her over here. And I'm not trying to shoot your hopes and your dreams down, but a lot of women, they have more to lose in the game being with you. A lot of women, their reputation gets tarnished just being seen walking with a black male out in public.
Hmm.
I've dated multiple women in Asia, and sometimes like people are just staring at us crazy because we're walking together or we're holding hands. In China, there's 40 million to 60 million more men than women there. So a lot of the Chinese men, when they see a foreigner walking with a Chinese woman and they look like they're together, there have been stories where Chinese men, they grab bats, they beat up the foreigner, they beat the woman up, they stabbed the woman and stabbed the boyfriend. It's very real over here. So is that the case in Japan?
No, surprising, no. And the only thing that stops parents and the outside family members that maybe you shouldn't date that person is the language barrier. They're like, well, if
Mm-hmm.
you can't effectively communicate with your mate, then that's a problem.
Right.
But other than that, they're like, they don't really care. They're like, as long as you treat her well, they don't really care. They welcome you as part of the family. So Japan, in that regard, doesn't have to deal with a lot of those issues that other Asian countries have to deal with. So, but I do know one thing. I remember I was sitting in a bar in Thailand and Pattaya, and I'm talking to this one guy and his wife. His wife is Thai, and I'm talking about relationships. How do men, well, not men, but how do Thai people view them when they're walking around? Because they don't live in Pattaya. They're just visiting a friend. I think they lived in Huyatin or something like that. And he basically told me that when they see a foreigner and a Thai woman walk around, they automatically assume that the Thai woman's a prostitute
Mm.
Be- because it's unfathomable. They can't even think about why a Thai woman would deal with a foreign man unless she was a prostitute. And I'm like, wow.
Mm.
But in Japan, we don't really have that problem,
Right.
unlike the other
Right.
Asian countries.
Right. And like I said earlier, different. All Asian countries aren't the same. You know,
Mm,
um, in Thailand and China, it's a little bit different. So, especially, you know, meeting the parents, even out here, I've been with women and we were together, and then their friends thought she was stupid because she was hooking up with a black man.
mm.
So it's very real out here. And not everybody's gonna accept you.
No,
And
my ex-girlfriend, man, I went to meet her parents
mm-hmm.
and everything, and like my ex-girlfriend was being very lovey-dovey, all touching and stuff, and her parents was like, "You can kiss her in front of us. We don't care as long as
Oh,
she's happy." And I'm just like, "What?"
what? Whoa,
Okay, well, like I'm smashing and her dad is in the next room and this
damn.
girl is being as loud as all hell and they just did not care.
There was
It's
probably
very It's very different out here. Very different.
They was probably happy that you was fucking her. Like, yes, she's in her late 20s. She's found somebody now.
It's very different out here. Now, I'm not going to say because I don't want anybody to come to Japan and then they meet a girl and then the parents are just like, hell no. Like, not everyone is going to be like that, but for the most part, and from what I hear from anybody living here, when you meet the parents are fine as long as you treat her well
Right,
because they also fall into the stereotype of, well, if your daughter's not married by 25, then the other men think that something are wrong with her.
right,
So by the time you meet them, they're just happy that they found someone. Now, generally, they probably would be happier and prefer if they were to date Japanese men, but at some point they realize that that's not going to happen and they just accept that whoever loves their daughter is who she should be with. And that's one good aspect about this place, I would say.
right. And that's definitely a good thing. That's definitely a good thing. Now, let's see. Okay, we already touched on like the parents and how people may view you guys when walking out in public. I would say that the most successful or the most success stories that I've seen where a man and a Japanese woman or a man and an Asian woman got together, built a family, and living in holy matrimony is they actually met her in Canada or they met her in America. And then she so happened to be
Mm-hmm.
from Japan. So she already got accustomed to the Western way of doing things and she got used to that. She found her a Western man and they went back to Japan. Those are the ones I see, still together. They have a beautiful family. Whereas a lot of men, when they meet women out here, sometimes like it's hit or miss.
Mm-hmm. I would say that that's because there is more of a connect between the two because she understands how things are done in the Western world, understand how men from Western countries operate. So when you get together, there's really no surprise. But these women that have not really traveled abroad extensively or lived abroad, they're used to the way Japanese men do things. They're used to the way their father do things, their brothers, the guys that they used to date in high school or in their early 20s. So they're not accustomed to Western males. So that could either be a good thing because we tend to be more romantic than the Japanese counterparts, or it can be a bad thing. You can have the language barrier in your way. You could just have cultural things in your way. Because I remember I got into an argument with my ex girlfriend on Christmas, not the Christmas past, Christmas before that,
hmm
and we get into an argument over the holiday itself because in Japan, Christmas is treated like Valentine's Day. You're supposed to do things with your significant other. But in America, we don't really treat it like that. It's a family holiday. So when I was trying to spend time with my family, she couldn't understand why it wasn't just me and her and we're not treating it like it's Valentine's Day, February 14th. It's just little things like that that can really ruin your mood and eventually build up to ruining your relationship. The women just don't understand you unless they have lived in your country and been exposed to how you do things and how you've grown up. So that's the main difference I've seen between the two.
Yeah, I've noticed that just getting into little arguments that you don't think it's a big deal, but it's a big deal to them.
Hmm.
So that's why I tell men like, there's gonna be some um, cultural barriers there. At times there's gonna be some bumps in the road, but you got to make sure that both parties are, you got to compromise and found a middle ground because if both of you guys can't find that middle ground and she wants you to comply to all her rules, then you got to let her go. And that's another thing. A lot of you guys are so simpish, you really don't know how to let a woman go or, you didn't did too much. You got in too deep. You're in too deep with the woman. You're married to her. You got a visa. You ate her box. You ate her booty. This woman is emotionally crazy right now. And when things aren't working and you're arguing about stupid shit and you want to just let it go, and that's what you do, sometimes you might end up in jail. And there's somebody that we do know who's ended up in jail twice because of his
Hmm.
lady.
Hmm. But the thing is, and I've seen that happen to a lot of males in Pattaya and also this country, because I know a few guys that are married over there. I don't know why, but they're married. And and the problem with these women, they don't do. Like it's been happening for quite some time. So like I said, these Asian women, they show their hand early. So they have the opportunity before you even get married, before you have kids. She's already shown her hand. But out of the desperation of yourself, you stay in a relationship hoping it's going to get better, and it never does. These guys are so afraid to walk away because they're so desperate to have an Asian woman. That's why they come over here. They just take all kind of mistreatment and disrespect and having to deal with so many headaches that they can just easily walk away from before it's too late. Because when you have a kid and you're married, it's kind of too late to try to walk away. You know,
Yeah,
you can still do it, but it's just harder. I don't know why guys do that to themselves, but these women show their hand early.
yeah,
So all these troubles these guys deal with, it doesn't just pop up out of anywhere.
yeah. And a lot of you guys out there, you're making us look bad, for the ones who, know when to call it quits. And that's the difference between dealing with a woman in a developed country versus like an underdeveloped country. An underdeveloped country, there's a lot of poverty going on there. A lot of them, all they know is hustling the whole life, sticking and moving. And a lot of brothers, you guys don't like to pay, when you go to some of these places like Thailand or Cambodia, whatever, you want to fall in love. And she's after, the check. You know what I'm saying? And so it's better, I would say, if you can't find a woman in America to get together with and then come to Japan, at least, well, not just Japan, just at a developed country in general, because I like places like Pattaya. It blows my mind when people have kids or people are playing stepdaddy to women down there, and just random nights. You don't know where she's at. She's
Hmm.
out to get a check. So
Yeah, a lot of guys come out here and they think that because they're away from American women or European women that the grass is going to be greener on the other side. All it is just a different type of grass. You're going to have problems. They're just a different kind of problems. But some guys come out here and think that there's going to be no problems. Everything's going to be peachy keen and life is going to be fantastic. It's going to be rainbow and unicorns. When these Asian women will give you headaches that you cannot believe.
exactly. And to wrap things up, I would say to you guys, like, if you're from America, you've never been with a woman in America, don't think you're gonna come over here. It's gonna be easy. It's gonna be much worse. Trust me. A lot of you guys that don't have any experience, it's trust me, it's a total different headache over here versus America. So, any last words you have?
Um, Not really. I think we covered everything. Uh, One thing I would say to cap this off is that have some sort of self-respect for yourself. There's many single women out in Asia. There's no reason for you to disrespect yourself and be disrespected by them by staying around longer than you need to stay around. As soon as she starts giving you headaches, just walk away. There's no reason for you to be desperate because you are. an exotic commodity out here. There's not many of you. Even if you're white, there's still not as many of you as there are Asian males. So, especially for black males, you are an exotic commodity. You don't have to be desperate. You don't have to be a simp. You don't have to be someone's stepdaddy. Take your time, be patient, and you can eventually find a nice woman in Japan.
Exactly.
Thailand, I don't know.
Well, that's another thing. You're gonna have to, and that's another thing. Like, you're going to get turned down and rejected and deal with a lot of women before you find the one who's actually half decent. And
Absolutely.
that's a problem. Like, a lot of these guys, like, they'll get with somebody right when they, you know, somebody gives them some attention, and they just want to hold on to it because they've seen how many women they've had to go through just to
Hmm.
get her. And you don't have to live like that at all.
And I would say one more thing before we go. In Japan, Japan has such low English proficiency. Like when they're in school, they do well with English. They can pass a test, they can pass a grammar test, but speaking and listening, they're bad at it. And like I said before, the women that generally speak good English are not the desirable women. So what you want to do is come over here and learn the language. Once you learn the language, you open yourself up to women that the Japanese men have access to. You open yourself up to a new breed of women, and it'll be so much better for you because the guys that I know that speak fluent Japanese, they've got tens, man. They've got tens, and they
Exactly.
really don't have any problems because, along with learning the language, you understand the culture a little bit more. So there's even less of a cultural difference because you understand them. You're a Japanese man inside a foreign guy's body. So it works out better for you that way. So that's one tip I would give you. You come out here, don't be lazy, learn the language, especially if you come out here for women because you'll get a better breed of woman.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. Like, you guys, especially black males, you need to learn the language. I mean, I see white guys out here, Thailand, China, speaking the language, and they have dimes on their shoulders, and they can
Hmm.
communicate with each other. And even if she can speak English pretty well with you, there's going to be a whole new wave of excuses that are totally different than the regular excuses that you hear from women in America. Okay, so, and I did a video talking about that. Y'all can go check that out. So, hey, great video. Dcell, I appreciate it.
No problem.
All right, thanks.
Until next time.
Yep, peace.
Cheers.
All right, so that's the video right there. Over and I'm out. Like, comment, tell us what you think. Peace.